In the name of God, in whom we live and move and have our being. Amen. Amen. So I made up a little story for you this morning. This is another possible version of today's gospel story. Okay? Once upon a time, there was a man who was poor. In fact, he wasn't just poor, he was very, very poor. He had nothing, he owned nothing, and he felt like he was nothing. And that's exactly how everyone treated him, like he was nothing. It wasn't always the case, though, but no one else knew that part of his story. About 40 years ago, he had it all. A great professional career, a beautiful wife, a big house, big shiny cars, a big fast boat, toys, friends, you name it, he had it. He had it all. But then, his beautiful wife, who was the love of his life, died in a tragic car accident. And he lost it. He didn't just lose it. He lost everything. He started drinking. He lost his job, his big house, his big shiny cars, his big fast boat, his toys, his friends, you name it, he lost it. He lost it all until he had nothing. Nothing at all. Now, and for the past 38 years, he found himself homeless and poor. In fact, he wasn't just poor, he was very, very poor. He had nothing, he owned nothing, so he felt like he was nothing. And that's exactly how everyone treated him, including himself. The poor man forgot who he was. He forgot how to expect or to accept love and compassion from himself or from anyone else. And more than anything else, he forgot how to hope. So every day and every night, he lived on the sidewalk just outside the largest bank in the city. During the day, some nice people would offer him change or food or even a coffee sometimes. And at night, he would curl up inside a couple of donated old green army blankets and go to sleep. Right there on the sidewalk in front of the big bank. And then one day, a kindly older man came by and asked him if he would like to have some money. The kindly man said to the homeless man, "Would you like to have some money? I mean, a lot of money. Enough money to get out of here and buy a home and a car and some decent clothes and get your life back. Would you like to have some money?" And the homeless man said, "Look, buddy, I can't go into that damn bank. Besides, all the other people who are going in there, they take all the money. They won't let me in there because I smell and look terrible. So there's probably nothing in there for me anyway." The kindly man looked at the homeless man with gentle mercy in his eyes. He could see that the homeless man had forgotten how to hope. So he reached into his own pockets and pulled out a couple of big giant wads of cash. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of cash. I mean, cash. So he gave it all to the homeless man. And he said to him, "You go now. Stand up, take your blankets, and walk." The end. It's kind of sweet, right? But it's also kind of silly. And so is the miracle in today's gospel story. It's kind of silly. We hear these stories so many times that I often think we just fluff right by the details, which usually have as much to say as the stories do themselves. So let's notice some of the details together. It was during the time of a religious festival. We're not told which one. But as a faithful Jewish man, Jesus made pilgrimage to the holy city of Jerusalem during this festival time in order to worship in the temple there. Jesus was a faithful Jew. He loved and practiced his Jewish faith, and he healed on the Sabbath. More on that in a minute. Near one of the gates of the old city, the Sheep Gate, there was located a healing pool, or a pool that was known to have some kind of healing properties. We don't really know if this was a natural hot spring or maybe some kind of a natural whirlpool. But tradition in Jesus' time had it that when the water started to move, then you would climb down inside into the water in hopes of being healed. And apparently, some people were. This pool was called Bethzatha, or Bethesda. It means house of mercy, or house of flowing waters. Our National Military Hospital and Healthcare Complex, located in Bethesda, Maryland, is often referred to simply as Bethesda, and it is named after this biblical place. This healing pool near the gate of Jerusalem is purported to have had 5 porticos, 5 arched doorways. Despite this very detailed description in the Bible, archaeologists were never really able to find it until the 19th century. And then, sure enough, someone stumbled across the ruins of the pool of Bethzatha with its 5 porticos, exactly as described in the Bible. It's now located in the Muslim quarter of the old city of Jerusalem. Back to the story. Notice that the man never asked Jesus for help. He never did. Jesus actually had to ask him, "Do you want to be made well?" What in the world is going on here? Did Jesus need to perform a miracle on the Sabbath? Again, more on that in a minute. "Do you want to be made well?" Jesus asked the man. It seems like such a ridiculous question. Of course the man wanted to be made well. Didn't he? Well, now, notice that the man never said yes. When Jesus asked him if he wanted to be healed, the man never said yes. Rather, he just went on and on about how it was never going to happen because he apparently wasn't able to follow the correct healing pool protocol. So he never asked Jesus for help, and he never even said yes when Jesus asked him if he wanted to be healed. What the heck? And then Jesus healed him anyway. "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." Jesus healed him anyway. Even though he hadn't asked Jesus for help, even though he didn't agree that he even wanted to be made well, even though he didn't sign the consent form or the medical liability waiver or the acknowledgement of possible side effects or the HIPAA privacy disclosure statement, Jesus healed him anyway. It's fascinating to note who Jesus heals in the Gospels, because surely he did not heal everyone. He didn't heal everyone who was sick, and he did not heal everyone who needed healing. And his choices seem to be kind of willy-nilly, you know? The folks that Jesus chose to heal were certainly not all of the same nationality or religion or social class or ethnicity or age or gender or anything that anyone can point to as a distinguishing or defining characteristic. Some were rich and some were poor. Some were old and some were young. Some were physically ill and some were mentally ill. Some were men and some were women. Some were Jews and some were Gentiles. Some were alive and some were dead. Some asked for his help and some did not. Jesus healed them anyway. And this time, as so many times before, this time Jesus chose to heal this man on the Sabbath, on the holiest day of the week, when nothing that could be understood as work was allowed to be done per order of God or per order of someone, which may be precisely the point. The punchline of this rather amazing story is the last line, which says, "Now that day was a Sabbath." Uh-oh, Jesus is in trouble. Again. Notice the details of this story. Notice that this man did not ask for Jesus' help. Notice that Jesus seems to seek him out. Notice that even when Jesus asked him if he wanted to be healed, he never said yes. And notice that Jesus healed him anyway. Notice that Jesus chose to perform this miracle for this man on this Sabbath day. But why? Why? Perhaps to show the man that he was worth being healed. Perhaps to show him that he was worth the love and compassion of another human being. Perhaps to show him that he was even worth the love and compassion of God. And perhaps to show everyone else, including the religious leaders, that the love and compassion of God don't need to follow man-made up rules. Perhaps to show everyone else, including the religious leaders, that the love and compassion of God never take a day off, not even on the Sabbath. Perhaps to show everyone else, including the religious leaders, that the love and compassion of God are the rules. They are the rules. The love and compassion of God are the only rules we ever really need on any day of the week. According to Jesus, God's only rule is love.